Cheryl Lynch here. Glad you came back to see how I made more of my folded fiber books. Today we're going to focus on this page, which is part of a map of Holland. We went on a bike and barge trip, and I decided to MapQuest. I used MapQuest to trace out the path of our journey, and so this is a map of it. And I like doing that because it incorporates every place we've been, and I love these little travel books because it helps me to remember all the places I've been. And I also did this in my Israel book and also on my Wednesday Wanderings. This was a journey, a walking trip that I took of the city of New York and went to a few different places. So either you can print it from Google Maps, do a print screen, or you can take an actual map, and that's what I did. I cut out this actual map, and this was from the tour company, and so it has the actual route where we started in Amsterdam and then went around and around and around and rode our bike and ended up back in Amsterdam. So, and it lists the different cities we were in, and I had the itinerary for that. So to start with, I used the pre-treated fabric for printing the map on, and here it is. Here's the map of our route. And I wanted to frame it out so that I could add a bunch of stuff to it, but first let me show you how I did that. I just took some border fabric and stitched around and stitched around. So I sewed and I flipped right through the batting. So this way, all the messy stuff is on the back of the batting. You can see how I stitched around everything, and you won't see that because the backing from the book will hide all the messy stuff. But this doesn't mean that I don't tie off my threads. That's one thing I'm a little obsessed with. I tie off, I knot, and I bury all my threads because I never ever want them to come loose. So on this map, I wanted to include a lot of the places that we've been, and I wanted to include that it was a bicycle trip at the same time. So the first thing I did was I took a whole bunch of photos that I liked, that highlighted the trip, and I shrunk them down so that they were tiny. And I put them on, I copied and pasted them into a Word document. I put a whole bunch of different words down there that I was planning on putting on the map to know where we've been. So this I used pretty much a whole sheet of the pre-printed fabric. Now in this case you really don't have to use the pre-treated fabric because you're not going to wash this. However, if for some reason it happens to get wet, you're at a party and you're sharing your book and someone spills their water, you would just cry if water got on your piece and everything all ran together. So I say better safe than sorry. And you can see how much I got from that one sheet. So this is what they look like when I cut them all out. So I have this little map and I have these pieces. Now I also wanted to add to it bicycles because it was a bicycling trip. But I didn't want to cover up everything. So this has really become a collage of the trip. So I decided that I wanted bicycles that you could see through. And this way it wouldn't hide photos or hide details of the map. So you're wondering, how did I print those onto organza? So this is organza. Nothing fancy, it's a polyester organza, and you can see through it. And how did I print on it? So I printed on it with a stabilizer, and the stabilizer happened to be computer paper. So I just took the regular paper with repositionable spray glue, sprayed the paper. I took a piece of this, maybe 9 by 12, so it was a little bit bigger, and smoothed it onto the paper, trimmed it so everything was 8.5 by 11. So now I had a piece of organza that was stabilized and stiff enough to put through my printer. So when it came out, this is what it looked like. So the organza was on top, and I just did bicycle, 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 bicycle all over. And you can see it's still a little bit sticky. So that's how I printed my bicycles. And there they are on organza. It peeled right off because it's repositionable. When I first did it, I did the bicycles in 2 different sizes. You can see here's one size, a bicycle, and here's another size. And sometimes it's just about playing with what you have, and since this is really a multi-layered type of block, I just had to play with the bicycles and the photos and the names. And what I found is that when I used the larger bicycles and put them on with everything, they just were too big. So sometimes it's just trial and error. And the bicycles just overwhelmed everything. See, so here I'm just adding different pieces along. And I just found that the smaller bicycles worked much better. So I took my block, I stitched the borders on, I quilted the borders, and then laid things, and then fused them on, except for the bicycles. The organza is very heat sensitive, so you don't want to melt it with too hot an iron. So I just kind of left the bicycles in place. I guess you could have used a little bit of spray adhesive, but spray adhesive can get kind of messy and I didn't want to mess around with it. So I just kind of layered things, fused the photos, fused the names down, and then I just started stitching. And I just did a little top stitch for all of that. And then you can see I tied off all my threads. You can see where I tied them off. And that was our trip in a page of the book.